I'm Dr. Barry, licensed psychologist, and here we talk about true crime and psychology. Thank you so much for joining. Let's hop right into today's topic. Let's go. Welcome. Thank you all so much for joining. I wasn't planning to talk about this case until Tuesday, but I got a new setup and I was able to test it yesterday. Things are working. Some things are going on StreamYard's end, I think. So I don't think it's my system, but wow. This past week of the Lindsay Clancy trial, I just wanted to debrief a little bit because I talked about opening statements and the first part of her former husband, Patrick Clancy, his testimony. This case is bringing up postpartum depression, postpartum psychosis, women's mental health, because one thing to me is clear. It sounds like she was trying to get help. It doesn't sound like this is a situation where a crime happened and mental health came up out of nowhere. Now, the thing that'll be interesting, because it'll be up to the jury to decide whether she meets criteria for legal insanity. So legally, was she unable to understand what she was doing and that it was wrong, and then the other aspects of it for her state? Each state, sometimes their legislation when it comes to this, sometimes the laws are written a little bit different. Please talk to a lawyer. I know the lawyer is covering this. Josh Ritter is covering this, and a lot of other lawyers are covering this on the tubes of you. I strictly wanted to talk about the mental health aspects that this case is bringing up. So far, we have not heard from any mental health experts. It is heartbreaking to see the emotional toll this trial is taking on the witnesses. So many witnesses became very emotional when talking about the crime scene and what happened and their efforts to attempt to save the three children. And Patrick Clancy, just, you could tell his emotions were really big. There were times that I thought his testimony was good for the state, and there were times that I thought his testimony was good for the defense. And I think he is just he's answering the questions. And because somebody asked in my comments why the state didn't ask him more about her day to day. And really, that's going to come down to the mental health experts. What he said, because I think the state wants it to look like she was still able to function. Yes, she was struggling, but the state is almost trying to minimize it a little bit, I think. And two things can be true at the same time. So I think just from watching, it's clear to me Lindsay Clancy was really struggling emotionally. And I talked on one of my past streams covering this case about the myth of high functioning, that sometimes just because a person isn't in a corner crying all day, just because they can take their children to the pool, just because they can engage in all of these activities, it does not mean that a person isn't struggling. And she used to be a nurse. And it's interesting to me because I think Andrea Yates was also a nurse too. And I have a chapter in my book. So my book is Turning Crisis into Clarity: How to Survive and or Thrive in the Midst of Uncertainty. And I have a chapter on helpers need help too. Often the people that give help are the worst at receiving it. But it sounds like she was actively trying to get help. I haven't made my mind up on this case one way or another. I need to hear the state's experts. I need to hear the defense experts. And then there will be a rebuttal case. No matter what happens, this is going to be in the hands of the jury. And the jury is going to be they're going to be the ones that apply the law to this case. And so please, because I know some people are very emotionally attached to one particular verdict or another, I'm trying to keep an open mind as I listen to this, because there's one narrative that the state has, the defense has a different narrative, and I'm just wondering where everything will fall. And I do not know that for sure. But with this case, I wanted to take an opportunity to talk about the importance of getting mental health help. So, and she was trying. And it sounds like she was communicating to her doctors that things weren't working. She did have an inpatient hospitalization. I would love to see those records because I wonder what observations the staff had, because the state seems very confident in their assertion that it's almost like the state is saying that it wasn't as bad as she's trying to make it out to be. But I want to know what the records show, and we likely aren't going to be able to see all of those records. It'll just be based on whatever records come in. Some people have talked about HIPAA or confidentiality because she is claiming not guilty by reason of insanity. All of her medical and mental health records come into, like, anything that's determined to be relevant comes into this case. So if somebody says not guilty by reason of insanity, any prior mental health treatment they've ever received, the state is going to subpoena all of those records. And so with HIPAA and confidentiality, now the provider couldn't just reach out to the state and say, "Hey, I heard my client was arrested. I have records that might be useful to you." No, like the provider has to wait for the state to reach out, because the state will often subpoena the insurance company, because through the insurance company they can find out who the different providers are if the person used their insurance, or they get a record of the different providers from the individual that's making the claim, and all of those records come in. All right. And so welcome. Make sure to put a QQQ or question marks in front if you have any questions. This is my real life mama. Hey, mama, thank you so much for joining. I couldn't help it. I got a brand new string. I got a brand new system, and I really like it. I also have it on dark mode, and I think I like dark mode for my neurodivergent brain. This is working better than the regular mode. So, all right. I'm just checking the comments. Good. So, I've already done a video talking about the first part of Patrick Clancy's testimony. And one of the biggest things that stood out to me that he said was the day of this incident, it seemed like a really good day, and there were no red flags. He was not alarmed. It's also interesting, and that's where I wonder what the defense experts are going to say. How do you explain the phone call that she had with Patrick where everything is sounds all he says is it sounds like she was in the middle of something? How do you explain how rational she was during that phone call if they're claiming a brief psychotic episode? Now, can a person be psychotic and have moments of clarity? Yes. And yet, if you're claiming not guilty by reason of insanity, sometimes it looks a little bit different. So let's compare this case to the Andrea Yates case. If you haven't heard of that case, and I have some notes here on my phone, Andrea Yates, this was back in the 90s. Off the top of my head, I want to say 96, but y'all know me in details. Details, numbers just fly around in my head for no reason. This was one of the first like national incidents that I remember. So I was in high school when this happened, and there was a post by Jessica Ann on Facebook, and she summarized a lot of this information. And yes, in June. It wasn't 96, it was 99. So in 1999, June, that Andrea Yates, she had a history of multiple attempts on her own life. She also right prior to this incident, she had been diagnosed with psychosis, and some of the different diagnoses that I found online, that I saw schizophrenia for her, but that she was having religious delusions at the time of this incident. And the doctor, after the birth of their fourth child, the doctor recommended that she not have more children, that he was really concerned about her mental health if she had another child. And so you have the testimony of that doctor during that trial. But it looks like after the death of her father in March of 2001, her condition deteriorated again. This was after the birth of their fifth child in November of 2020. And so the incident happened May 3rd of 2001. And she calmly did the act. And there were five children. She no, sorry, on May 3rd, she just filled the bathtub with water. Um, but that wasn't the day of the actual incident. I believe that was June 20th of 2021. So I'm 2001. Me and my brain and numbers. So June 20th of 2001, her husband, Rusty, he had left for work. She had been recommended to not be left alone with the children. And his mother was expected to arrive later that morning. The guilt she must have for being late that day, like, I don't even know if she was late, but that period of time between when the husband left and the mother-in-law arrived, she did the unthinkable to their five children. And she calmly called 911 and asked the police to come there. When officers arrived, she immediately admitted to what she had done. She never claimed it was an accident. Instead, she later explained that she believed she had become an evil mother, that Satan was influencing her, and her children would lose their souls if they continued living. So she was having religious delusions. And because with medication, this went away, and but without medication, she had these religious delusions. And so there can be a type of psychosis that has a religious theme, but it's not actual demonic possession or anything like that, because it improves with medication. Her doctors had started removing her Haldol. She had been prescribed one of those first generations antipsychotics, Haldol, and her doctor was just going to try to leave her on an antidepressant. But when taking her down off of the Haldol, that's when this incident occurred. The first jury actually convicted her, but she was retried again in 2006. And it's my understanding, based on this post on Facebook, that there was a doctor that for the state that mistakenly testified about a Law and Order episode that never actually existed. If that's true, that is what? But an appellate court ruled that the inaccurate testimony may have influenced the jury's decision and ordered a new trial. She was retried in 2006, this time after hearing extensive testimony about her psychosis, hospitalizations, multiple attempts on herself, and delusions. The jury found her not guilty by reason of insanity. So I wanted to go over that again, because when somebody is found not, and I'm not trying to help people crime better, okay? Because our whole thing here is don't do crimes. Like that is the whole thing here. But the bar for not guilty by reason of insanity is very, very high. I do hope that more states have a guilty but mentally ill. So Nevada and California both have guilty but mentally ill. There might be more states, but those are the two states. I've covered cases in those states where the defendant was found guilty but mentally ill. And what happens is then the corrections and mental health, they get together to determine first stabilizing the person's mental health for a period of time. And then once their mental health is stabilized, they serve the remainder of their sentence in a prison. And they likely remain on whatever medications that were prescribed. They might not have access to the same level of treatment that they had in a mental health hospital, but it's my understanding that they try to connect the individual with resources. Somebody can have a legit mental illness and still understand that their behavior is wrong. And that is the bar that we have. I saw a question. Let's see. All right. Doesn't her medication history look somewhat average for someone trying to find the right medication combo? So it is like 14 medications, which is a lot. That is a lot of medications. I have worked with people, often in inpatient stays, so, I've rarely had somebody go through that many medications. Now, some of them are within the same family. So the first 2 medications were both SSRIs, and then they added some different mood stabilizers, antipsychotics, medications for severe anxiety. They added and medications for sleep. Trazodone, there are medications that are really commonly prescribed for sleep. I am not a psychiatrist. Somebody got mad on one of my videos. It's fine. And so I clearly say that I'm not a psychiatrist, but as a psychologist, I had to pass a psychopharmacology class. So every psychologist, we are trained to understand and know what medications are, what their interactions are. There are some states that allow psychologists to prescribe. I would never want that responsibility. I no, no, I personally, even if Virginia let me prescribe, I'm like, no, nope. No thanks. I like being able to refer to a psychiatrist. I have worked closely with client psychiatrists in the past, especially when they were having multiple difficulties. Sometimes you would also stop and do psychological testing. You would do if the family has the resources, sometimes there is blood test. Now you'd have to talk to a medical doctor or a psychiatrist about how helpful those tests to see what medications may be a good fit for the person's genetic makeup. But there are some tests that will show, hey, these medications likely aren't going to work. Those tests aren't free. And so that's where, with healthcare, we're looking at, can people access the care that they need? Can they, afford it? Why did she admit she knew what she did to her kids and she planned it when her husband left the home and listened to voices in her head? Are you talking about Andrea Yates? Are you talking about Lindsay Clancy? Because I don't think she talked to anybody after. I think all the information we have later on is comes through her attorney and through mental health evaluations that she had. To me, her attempt on her own life, Lindsay Clancy, to me, it was significant. So the state is trying to make it sound like she had superficial wounds and like her injuries weren't that bad. No. So when I think of a superficial wound, I think, and I don't even have one, I think of just like a scratch that requires no medical, like you wouldn't put gauze, you wouldn't put anything on it at all. It might have barely, and I can't see, I don't, they probably did let us see pictures. I'm not a fan at looking at pictures myself. Like I'm not, because some things you can't unsee. So I will admit I haven't looked at the pictures, but I've heard people describe them, and her attempt did seem significant. And sometimes at the last minute, that survival instinct can sometimes kick in. But yes, I always confuse psychologists and psychiatrists. Psychiatrists are medical doctors, and this is in the United States. Some countries have variations with this, but psychiatrists, they are regular medical doctors. So they are MDs. They go through all of medical school. And then their last year, they have a 1-year residency. So instead of doing a residency in like some other specialty, they do a residency in behavioral health, and often in some type of hospital inpatient setting. And then they do additional fellowships and they get board certified in psychiatry. So they do additional training after that. But before that, they do all the regular doctor stuff. I considered being a psychiatrist, but I didn't want to be a medical doctor. Thank you so much. I'm doing well. I hope you all are doing well as well. Yes. All right. All right. Yes. So to me, it wasn't superficial. I think scratch when I hear superficial. I've To me, Now, it wasn't like she didn't hit an artery. So there are some attempts that I've seen that were, so to me, hers were, it was like moderate. And I have worked with people that have had a pretty severe. So individuals, yes, that where I don't want to say anything triggering. I've worked with situations that were very severe. So, and the state minimizing that, they could lose credibility with the jury. I forgot to mention another person I follow, JD Explains. So JD is a lawyer. He normally has on like a red shirt and like a beach background, but he breaks down the law in a really great way. I like watching his channel, and so I've been watching it there. I've been watching the live streams with either Courtroom Confidential. There's also Corgi-san is streaming. I'm sure Paul. I'm guessing Paul. But I normally stream hop when I'm taking a look at this. Yes. And psychiatric nurse practitioner, there's no problem. So, psychiatric nurse practitioner is a regular nurse that gets additional training in psychiatric medications. I often find personally, this is my personal experience, that many psychiatric nurse practitioners take their time more. I've felt rushed by psychiatrists. So, early in my training, I used to go with my clients to their medication appointments. There was one psychiatrist in Virginia Beach. He would not see, if a client had home based therapy, he would not see that client if the in home therapist was not there, which I really appreciated because there were some psychiatrists that didn't care if I was in the room or not. And I have like important information, like, I don't know, like, so I don't even remember the psychiatrist's name. I don't even know if he's still in private practice. This was back in the early 2000s. Virginia Beach Community Services Board. He was really he was really great. I've had some other psychiatrists that I've worked with where, like I said, like they didn't really listen to the family. They didn't really listen to me, but they were good with the meds. They wouldn't change. Like they had their plan in their mind, and no matter what we said, it to me it seemed. Now I am not a psychiatrist, but I would get frustrated because it seemed like they weren't listening or validating what we were saying. They were just kind of, okay, here are the symptoms. Here's your script. Keep on this script. Keep doing therapy. I'll see you in 2 weeks. I'll see you in a month. I'll see you in 3 months. Like that's what happens sometimes. But I've had clients have really good experiences with psychiatric nurse practitioners. All right. Um, what do you think of her journal entries stating animosity toward the two older children? So that's where I also saw that book that she was reading, something like Good Moms Have Bad Thoughts or something. I don't know, like something, or it was something about like good moms and bad thoughts or something. Um, I need more information, and I wonder if there are things in there that the defense might present as well. I think the state very much views her as a controlling, obsessive, like they view her in a very strict way. If my mom is still in the chat, please know I would give her a schedule. Now she didn't have to follow the schedule to the minute, but I would ask her, "Hey, right now he's doing two naps. Please try to put him down between like around 10 a.m. Try to put him down around like 1 or 2 p.m. Please do not let him sleep after 5 p.m. Like, I don't care what you have to do. Keep the boy awake." Because so my mom, she was she provided our child care from the time he was 6 weeks old, because I returned to work when he was 6 weeks, and all the way until 18 months. She was supposed to do the first 2 years. I'm glad she's not like on the stream and I get to talk about it, because she promised me 2 years. I am her only child. He is her only grandchild, and she promised to take care of him for 2 years. At 18 months, I don't blame her. This child was very active. She was retired. So we did find him daycare at 18 months. And I liked that at 18 months, I would get regular updates on how much my child ate, what he ate, how long he slept. I got very detailed updates. I think it was either at 2 or 3 because he switched to a room where you didn't get those updates anymore. You just got the end of the day update. So, and that's where I wonder if Lindsay Clancy, if she might have had some OCD, and I don't know that to be for sure. I cannot diagnose her. I've never met her. And sometimes a person is just very regimented and very strict, and because there can also be OCD personality traits versus like obsessive compulsive disorder as the like somebody that has compulsions, obsessions. It's we look at it as personality characteristics versus like more of an anxiety disorder. But that's where the state seems to be going instead. I don't know. Because I also heard bipolar thrown out there. So I need to hear from the mental health experts. And once we know more, I will definitely share with you all. She forced me to do the same. I did. We called it proof of life. So I would text POL and she had 30 minutes to send me a picture before I contacted the authorities. I never contacted the authorities. I never would have. But I did. I asked her for proof of life. All right. No. All right. So, with this case, please take care of your mental health as you watch. Okay. It's very, very important. The details of this are graphic. It is heartbreaking. Seeing even the first responders break down on the stand, it was a lot. I would kind of tune in and out. So I didn't just sit down and just watch it for however many hours. They are ending court early most days, and I wonder if it's just because of the heaviness of this case. The jury did a view of the home. We'll see what they think of that. I know the state really wanted that to kind of for the jurors to see everything for themselves. Um, and also, I think this is also very emotional for Lindsay. So I think the emotion Lindsay is showing, so she is hands like this. During the 911 call, many people talked about her attorney, I think was like rubbing her hand or something. And she has every right to be present. And the judge is not admonishing her or anything like that. And I think that is likely good because um and it hasn't reached a level where she is, like, uncontrollably, like, to where I think it's drawing unnecessary attention to her. Like, I think she's had normal, understandable reactions to horrific information about something that she did. And, I think there was a part of her that was definitely a loving mother. There was a part of her that I think does really care about her children. And yet there was this darkness, and that's where, um, there was something else going on, and as a mental health professional, I've worked with clients that have struggled with very, very severe depression, especially after, the birth of a new child, after different life changes, and sometimes we've had to have a safety plan. And a part of that safety plan is sometimes sitting down, and sometimes it's meant them needing to go for an inpatient stay. Sometimes it's meant them not being alone with their child. Um, Sometimes it's meant sitting down with everybody, making sure that certain things were outside of the home. And but yeah, my heart really, really just breaks for this case. Yes. She will have to live with this for the rest of her life. And, so I don't know if that's part of the reason why they're ending early each day. Like, this would be heavy to have jurors sit through this, and it's my understanding, I know at least during the 911 call, that the jurors were, I think, crying. There were some jurors that were visibly, emotional after that. I think they took a lunch break. I think that they took a long break after the 911 call. They, And also, I'm glad that Patrick Clancy didn't have to be on the stand to hear. Because sometimes when somebody does a 911 call, sometimes you have them on the stand to confirm that, yes, that was their call. I'm glad that he didn't have to be in the room for it. I'm also glad that it wasn't streamed. This is the worst day of this family's life. My goal is to talk about postpartum depression, to talk about mental health in general, to talk about how sometimes there can be these warning signs. And just because a person is high functioning, just because they are able to cook and they're able to do this and that, it doesn't mean that they're not struggling. And the state seems to be minimizing that, and that's where I don't know what's gonna happen. This may be a predominantly female jury, and I wonder what effect that will have, on everything, but, all right. So after this, I'm gonna go live on my second channel. So I have a second channel called it is Navigating Neurodiversity with Dr. Barry. And so I'll put a link to that next video over here. If you'd like to follow us over there, you can. But this video is going to be discussing Too Smart for ADHD, Twice Exceptional. Individuals that are gifted and have ADHD, or people who have done college, or they have straight A's, and yet the family is still concerned about executive dysfunction. We are going to talk about that because as a psychologist, it's something that I have definitely seen, and it's something that I've been researching more and more. And so we are going to take a look at that. I believe there are alternates because I think we don't know who the alternates are yet, because there are 18 people, and so I don't know, do we know that that's the official jury? Because I know that there are alternates for this. So, yeah. Yep, yep, yep. Um, Thank you so much for the super chat. Thank you for covering this case. Is it too early to explain why everyone is assuming she had postpartum depression? Can people with postpartum depression feel guilt immediately after? So that's where, but it's not about feeling guilt or not feeling guilt. And to me, it's not even, it's about, did her mental health get in the way of her understanding that her behavior was wrong? I need to turn off my notifications. I'm sorry if y'all can hear that. My family is saying happy birthday to my kiddo. Thank you, family. My kiddo is playing video games with his dad, and so they are over there and happy. Yes, yes. And so I have a entire channel that's going to be developed, that's going to be devoted to neurodiversity, parenting as an adult, and then also so either parents with neurodivergent children or for neurodivergent adults. So that is who that is for. Yes, he turned 9 today. And so my birthday is Thursday, and then my mom's birthday is next week. And so August, we just go birthday after birthday after birthday. With her having postpartum or not, I would be interested to see what diagnoses comes out. The way that they described her worsening mental health, it's it's kind of sounded like it's kind of sounded, because it doesn't seem like her mental health got really bad after the birth of her child. It sounds like it was the return to work. But and then that whole search for ways to not be here anymore. And Patrick Clancy wasn't sure if it was him or he accidentally clicked something after the death of a celebrity, or was it her? And if it was her, that looks bad for her case, because that was before any medications were started. Because I think the defense is trying to say that she was struggling with her mental health and the medications made her worse, and that all of these issues with the medication, she ended up having a brief psychotic episode, or she had a moment of psychosis where she heard a man's voice telling her if she didn't do it, I don't know, like a man's voice telling her blah blah blah. And so we will see. We will see what happens with this. But Yeah. So I will see you all on Tuesday. We will see what happens with this case on Monday and Tuesday, but I'll be talking about it on Tuesday. If you're going to follow me over to the next channel, I so appreciate you all. If not, enjoy the rest of your day. Be kind, don't do crimes, and I will see you all next time. Have a good one. Bye.